You're listening to The Dealmaker's Edge with AY Strauss, diving deep into stories behind commercial real estate leaders. All right, welcome to The Dealmaker's Edge, everyone. Today, we're really excited to be joined by the one and only Stephen Bittel, founder and chairman of Terranova Corporation, a leading commercial real estate firm based in Miami. The firm manages an investment portfolio of over $1 billion in assets. Stephen is a prominent figure in U.S. real estate and a pillar of the Miami community. He launched Terranova after a brief career in law, driven by his passion for commercial real estate. Over the years, he has built the firm into a powerhouse, overseeing a diverse portfolio of assets that have shaped the commercial landscape in South Florida. And a lot more we'll learn too. Beyond his business, Stephen has dedicated time to community service, serving on numerous boards such as Miami-Dade Expressway Authority, Achieve Miami, and Fairchild Tropical Botanical Gardens. Stephen, I know you're super busy, so we're really thankful for you taking the time to join us today on the Dealmaker's Edge. Welcome.
Thank you, Aaron. And my legal career was limited to limping through law school and barely graduating.
Yeah, because at the time you're also juggling real estate business, so you had more than enough of excuse, and you were economics major in college too. But maybe we even step further back. I know you grew up in Miami, so you're a native son. Maybe you could talk about from that early years all the way to college, how you got through that part of your life, how you enjoyed that part, and kind of the ideals that shaped you to sort of launch in your business career.
Well, first, I was born in our public hospital, Jackson Memorial, that I remain quite engaged with, and I'm a product of our public school system, 1 through 12, in an era when we had no air conditioning in our public schools, which of course everyone finds astonishing, but I don't recall it ever being a problem. Um, Clearly the bedrock of me as a person, I really had an idyllic growing up, 2 wonderful parents. My dad was uniquely brilliant, and my mom, while smart, had incredible social skills. I'm not as smart as my dad was, or as social as my mom, who remains alive. But the real secret is, I was a classic grinder and outworked everyone. Um, and of course, I have an older brother and a younger sister, so I have all the middle child syndromes of having to do more.
And be diplomatic and negotiate deals, I'm sure. But from there, you decided to um, go to the Northeast for college. And what made you decide to go where you did and study economics? You like the freezing cold? Is that it?
Yeah, the joke is that I took the wrong flight, but no, my dad had been a professor of debate at Tufts and was uniquely impressed with the reasoning and communication skills of competitors from traditional New England liberal arts colleges. So I applied to a bunch, I got into them all, and had this magical tour of Bowdoin where the tour guide, who was, of course, much taller and more handsome and had buckskin gloves, and I was very impressed. But he talked about the Bowdoin experience as though it was this mystical state of higher being that you could only know if you went. And so I did. And my sister 2 years after me, and my son in 2010.
Amazing. So it was. And you studied economics, and I know you did quite well in that major. We talked about how that helps shape your overall business perspective and approach. And you also went abroad. Maybe you could describe some of that.
Well, an undergraduate degree in economics at Bowdoin was probably better than a master's in most places. And I left twice. I worked at the Congressional Budget Office in D.C., which was my first computer experience. I was way ahead of my time. Of course, today I'm way behind my time in that I don't know how to use Word or Excel, but I can read the outputs. Um, as a senior, the president of the college invited me in to visit. Back then, you didn't get an email; you got a little pink slip and a mailbox with dials. Of course, I was terrified, thinking I must have done something awfully wrong that I was unaware of. But he came in and they said they'd like to nominate me for a Rhodes, a Marshall, and a Watson. I had had a really good undergraduate academic career and played a sport, so somehow I fooled another one. And anyway, I accepted the Watson Fellowship and spent a year in Europe requiring no classroom work. and I had been really a classic tool grinding away, so I was ready for a break. And I met um, my bride there in Paris in my first month.
Amazing. That's like a win-win-win.
Most days she thinks it's a win. Not every day though.
Then you decided to go to law school, but while you were in law school, you also decided to work in commercial real estate. And I guess that became so successful that eventually you decided just to focus and pinpoint your career specifically on the business side.
Yeah, so I applied to law school while I was away. Um, I got into some fancier names. Miami offered me a scholarship. I had a sister in medical starting medical school about the same time. So, you know, my dad was really wonderful and said, "Go where you want to go. If you want to be in business, you should go to Miami, and if you want to practice law, you should go to Columbia." That was the decision. I went to Miami. I had written an article that was published in, the South Florida equivalent of Cranes that I mailed in handwritten every other week. So I got back and I was offered a bunch of jobs right away. I spoke at a lot of conferences in Europe and was a consultant for a Department of Agriculture studies on foreign investment in U.S. real estate and primarily farmland. And I took a job at another real estate company right before starting law school. I did both simultaneously my first year. Of course, I got terrible grades and lost my scholarship. The first and only person in the history of this scholarship program to have ever lost it. That's a great distinction. In the fall of my second year of law school, I started Terranova after the firm I had been offered to trade my salary for commission only. And I started law school thinking a square foot was a birth defect, and later learned more. At the end of 14 months, I was generating my own opportunities and placing them. So I recklessly went on my own in the fall of my second year of law school, months before my March wedding.
I think that scholarship is still waiting for you, Stephen, to adhere to its terms. But all kidding aside, it seems like you made a great decision. You followed your passion and your heart, and you're clearly um, really good at what you do. So maybe we'll jump ahead a little bit. I mean, it's been over 45 years now, um, running your own shop. And I know Terranova is not the only thing you do besides all the other work. You have other companies you're involved with and sit on boards and invested in. But I was taken by a lot of your kind of philosophy. I mean, I know you have gone through a lot of markets and a lot of cycles, and clearly where you've invested is very hot today, but it wasn't always. So I think I quote you from somewhere. I think you mentioned laser-like attention to cash flow and balance sheet, surviving market cycles, but also in those downturns to be aggressive and seize opportunities when other people may be kind of caught off guard. And I think that's sort of been a consistent theme in your career, has it not?
Yeah, I mean, Warren Buffett had this comment that I'll get it wrong, but the paraphrase was be greedy when people are scared and scared when people are greedy. Um, you know, I was completely ill prepared for the first downturn in the late 80s. I was inexperienced, um, undercapitalized, and paid a price. And I swore to myself that if I ever survived, that I was going to do it with a lot less leverage the next time around, and I did. Um, After that first shocking era of standing on the cliff and looking down, I I did it differently. We built a huge third-party management leasing business. It generated significant cash flow. We It gave us a great vision into the market and a broad geography, access to tenants, relationships with institutions. Really not planned. We were just trying to survive, but it was really good. And we took the profit and started quietly buying again. Um, that business was built out. It did management, leasing, construction management, tenant rep, mortgage brokerage, and it was great. Eventually, our portfolio was big enough, and our current president, Mindy McElroy, wanted urged me to get out of the third party business and focus on our own portfolio because she said one good equity deal every 5 years made so much more money than the fee business, and she was right. And of course, the tax consequences were better. So, um, you know, I'm always teased locally that my timing is good. And, that goes back to my economics degree about supply and demand of both from tenants' point of view, from investor appetite, and from on monetary policy. So we've had relatively good fortune in selecting the right time to go long on debt or exit certain assets or buy others. And that's kind of been the score. But it's been a lifetime of getting up early, staying up late, reading everything, and trying to be the best informed investor I can be.
No, well said. I know you really focus on knowledge every day, which is, I think, a key theme for every successful investor. You hit on that long-term equity strategy, transitioning from third party, from cash flow to long-term equity. And if you look at your stable roster of partners you've had, it reads like a who's who rather of the institutional world. So clearly, people align with your long-term philosophy and your style and approach to business. And I think one of the things I've read you push back on is there's a tendency from a lot of sponsors um, not investing their own capital, right? You need to, and I think you're a big proponent of making sure your capital is aligned with your partners, make money together, not just from each other. Um,
One of my long-term favorite lines. I
yeah,
haven't used it since in New York on Tuesday.
yeah. But it's absolutely true. I think people can kind of very quickly understand if somebody's fee driven or long term equity driven, and you put your money where your mouth is in how you style and fashion your deals, and also um, the where the profit sharing occurs. As you're doing a transaction, you can make regular payments through the course of that life cycle of investment, or just have the portfolio sort of churn out the partner GP promotes. And I think you really focused on that cash flow, but also aligning the interests. If that's something that's been your mantra from day one, or have you kind of evolved to that over time?
I mean, I always thought we should have aligned interests. I think I've done a lot better job over certainly the last 25 years of making sure our interests were aligned. When I started, I didn't have anything to invest. Our first big institutional partner was Principal, and they said they wanted, after doing a lot of workouts for them, they said, let's start buying and we should do it together. And I said, that's great, but I don't have any money. So, they gave me the initial deals where I got a 10% profit share over a 10 IRR, which of course sounds a tough hurdle today, but we bought at higher yields back then. And after several of those deals, then they said they knew what I was making. We had the round trip and it exited, and they said I should start co-investing, and I did. And the initial investments, there was $1 million in every deal. The head of their RISA fund, now their U.S. property fund, moved over to what became BlackRock Real Estate. And after doing several deals with them, he promised to make me a better deal, and he said he was to wind down the Principal relationship as he wound up the BlackRock one, and we did, and it was good. And one of the big bosses there said, the CEO said, "So explain to me why you put $1 million in every deal." I said, "Oh, that's very easy. That's so I can remember how much I have in every deal." He laughed and said, "Really?" I said, "Really?" Look, I can't do that anymore. In most of our transactions today, save one, you know, I and my family, we're the largest investors in the deal. And um, we did that for a few reasons. One, we really loved the deal. We wanted more of it. Two, it enabled us to get similar economics with less work because we could do fewer transactions and have bigger pieces. Bad news is when additional capital is needed, we get to write that check um, with everyone else, and ours is always the biggest. But certainly finding investors is a lot easier when you're eating your own cooking.
100%. And you learned that the hard way, and you built it up, and you built that integrity, and you've done right long term, and that really shows. I know this is a real estate focused podcast, and we're focusing on the real estate portfolio, but I know you've also been involved in other companies and other businesses. Maybe you can touch on that and how you've managed to balance all these different competing interests in your life. Forget about even personal or all the charitable work you're doing, but just on the business side.
Well, look, the best balance in my life is I have 4 grandchildren now, so, I will be home at 5:30 tonight for dinner with 2 of my grandchildren. That's the best. You got another chance to do a better job than you did as a parent. That's super important to me in a way that I never imagined I would get to. Um, you know, loving your grandchildren is so much easier than loving your children. So that's one. So yes, in 96, Lehman Brothers provided us a $300 million line of credit, which was a lot of money back then. It's a lot of money today, but probably over $1 billion today. And it was 100% advance rate acquisition line to do sale leasebacks in the gas station industry. It went great for a while until it didn't go great. The debt in that sector stopped performing. I got to fire most of our team, and we went into the asset management mode, a ton of litigation. It ended up over the years that we owned the gas stations. We today are the operators. We're the fuel distributors. I bought out all the other partners and paid off Lehman at par well after their bankruptcy. Um, so it's a great business for us we have today. Similarly, we have a big position in the overwhelming majority in a dental insurance company that I started as a 5% investor. And as they grew and needed more regulatory capital, I had moved them into our building. And every time they needed more quickly, I provided it. And anyway, I own 88% today.
Terrific. For some reason, I guess that might increase over time as they need more cash. Who knows? But the fact is, you've juggled so much. I read somewhere that you talk about success a lot, and it's relative. And I read in an interview you gave a while back, you had a definition of success. I want to read back to you, and that the freedom to reach higher and higher for your goals while earning the respect and trust of friends, family, colleagues, and peers. To be the one that gets the first call to help others. And that's deep and meaningful. And I think also a key theme for you in business is empathy. And I think people just sort of trash anything that's not metric oriented. I know obviously it's all about people, but the soft side of business, people kind of just put in a separate bucket. But you've managed to achieve terrific performance, maintain your value core, define success in your terms, and also treat people well. And how could you kind of discuss that empathy as a driving theme for your business and kind of vice versa?
Aaron, that's probably the most challenging interview question I've ever been asked. Um, so let me think.
Fair enough. I know I caught you by surprise, but it's very meaningful because a lot of people say, hey, just be a shark. It's all about the numbers and the math and the dollars. But to be good and do good business is something I don't think people discuss enough, and I love to elevate that in the
I
marketplace.
I always say that the Jewish religion teaches that, and I talk about it at Shabbos dinner all the time, and I made a national political speech once where I talked about it, that Tikkun Olam shouldn't be a once in a while activity. Healing the world should be a daily activity. And the more you have accomplished, the more people you know, the more you have, your ability to do it on a meaningful basis goes up. So look, I joke that I am, my community's most important medical concierge. But, we've been generous to a lot of hospitals, not because I love them all. I mean, I love one of them, but because it enables me to get better and quicker access to healthcare for my family, our employees, and friends. And, I get calls all the time from people I don't know, and I make sure they get in quick. I was at a YPO breakfast this morning, and someone said their kid has got waitlisted, early decision. Is there anything I can do to help? I do that stuff all the time, and I think we're all supposed to do that stuff. I don't know why everyone doesn't. And, I think you get a reputation of saying yes when asked, but the Jewish religion also teaches that when someone gives you the opportunity to do a mitzvah, you should thank them, not they thank you. So it makes me really happy to do this. It's the best part of being 68 and born and raised in the same community, in that I can help lots of people all the time. So I expect everyone to do it. And yeah, I remember there was a guy in the real estate business who was in a terrible car accident years and years ago. And one of his friends calls me from the emergency room and they said he's been waiting there for 2 hours and no one has seen him. And I said, hold on. I took the other phone and I called the CEO of the hospital. And before I was off the phone, 3 doctors marched in. Well, that wasn't so important to me. Saving a life is a big deal. The guy that I did that for thanks me all the time whenever he runs into me. He said, "You saved my life." I said, "I didn't save your life. The doctor saved your life. I got the doctors to see you maybe 5 minutes quicker. Maybe they were coming anyway." We all should be doing that stuff.
Yeah, from what I hear you say, it seems to me as if the success, the proportionate greater responsibility you have, and it seems like you certainly live by that doctrine. And I know a lot of people appreciate all the little things and big things that you're doing daily. Another theme I think is you keep adjusting, right? Markets move, rates move, governments move. A million things are moving around, and I'm not asking you to prognosticate on 25 because I think from 23, 24, everyone's just second guessing all their analyses. It doesn't change your thesis, I'm sure, which is long term, um, thoughtful capital. But where do you think things are going to shape out in 25 on a macro and perhaps somewhat micro level with all these different nuances happening in real time?
Look, the we always talk about that. I want to stay ahead of the puck. I want to be where it's going, not where it's been. Um, Everyone in 24 thought rates were coming down more and faster than they have. Um, I've talked a lot publicly about that small and mid-sized banks that are the primary debt capital providers for small and mid-sized businesses and much of the real estate industry have really been absent from um, this hoped for recovery. And we the last couple of years, the economic data has been good. Inflation has been coming down, employment has been growing, um, corporate profits have been generally quite good, stock markets performed, and the commercial real estate industry is stagnant. Clearly, this bid ask gap. I grew up in an industry where you always could borrow at 250 basis points lower than the cap rated acquisition. So you made money from day one. And if you grew rents or renovated, you did something good, it got better. And, we have a whole industry that only has lived in a market where cap rates decline and interest rates decline. And you didn't have to be good, you just had to be in. We've been obsessed with operations to the chagrin and derision of most of my friends for a long time. Now we're back in fashion for a moment, but I don't know where this is going. I think the banks blame all of their challenging relationship issues on the regulators. I really think the banks are more scared of another Silicon Valley type run on the banks, and they don't want to get caught with not enough liquidity. That's a problem. And, the government should be encouraging banks to more fully engage with their performing customers so that we can climb out of this. And it's stuck. That's the bad news. What's the good news? Our core holdings, while we have stuff in Texas and Georgia and the state of Washington, our core is overwhelmingly in Miami-Dade County, which probably has been the best market in the country, maybe the world. And that's good luck. That's the luck of a geographically opportunistic birth.
Here. I know that's an impossible question. It probably annoys you too because no one knows, but you have a great track record, so can't blame me for asking.
Look, we bought a big office building in Coral Gables a year and a half ago, and then bought the debt and foreclosed and got now own it. Another one that abuts it. So, but it's a good market down here, and you can't say that about DC or Philadelphia or New York or Chicago or San Francisco, Portland, LA. I mean, there are a lot of markets that are suffering and some are getting, San Francisco is showing signs of life. I don't know if Chicago ever shows signs of life. Clearly, Miami's been buoyed by what I like to call the Citadel effect. And
Sure.
that announcement and that consumption of space both directly and by the people, the firms that serve them, has really driven this market to heights that we didn't dream of.
For sure. No, it's been amazing to watch. Um, Stephen, what question, if any, and there may not be any, could I or should I have asked you that we could have addressed on insights you can share to some of our listeners on this podcast? Sort of a catch-all, and there's no pressure here either.
Look, so the answer, the real answer, the one you asked before, is how did I juggle all these things? So, really, from college through 2018, I slept 4 to 6 hours every night, need it or not. I got a stern talking to in early 19 from my doctor saying that was not a long-term strategy that was going to be effective for me. So I work hard now to get 7 hours. Um, that was really the secret. I had more time. I was completely absentee dad. I mean, I was there a little bit on weekends, and I always tried to make it home for dinner Friday night, but I worked all the time. Um, my kids are, they still like me usually. They think I have some control issues, which could be true. But the things I think about a lot are, how do I get the next generation of my family to be as committed to both their careers, their families, and their and charitable involvement as I have been. So the good news is, with the leadership team at Terranova, it's blessed. Our president has just started her 28th year, and the guy that runs the other half of the balance sheet just started his 23rd year. Our controller's with us 14 years. Um, People in this industry don't have that kind of longevity. The good news is our leadership team often knows what I'm going to come out on an issue or how I'm thinking before I do. Um, that's that's not normal. And people say, "What's the secret?" I always say, identify your game changers and overpay them, so that when they get that headhunter call, their first response is, "Do you have any idea how much I make?"
And
Um,
I imagine it's also the way you're treating them too, with respect and in a partnership that they respect as you as well for your values. But
Look, I'm better. All the rumors about how tough I was in my youth were true. You start a business out of your house, undercapitalized, you're terrorized that you're going to make a decision that's going to blow it all and you're going to lose it all. Um, that fear of failure was an incredible driver in my young years. By 40, mid 40s, I probably started to mellow. It wasn't complete till my early 50s. But today, I never raise my voice and I'm pretty happy. And, my favorite line when someone does something bad is I say, I'm disappointed and it's unfortunate, which came from one of our lawyers, which was his advice in a deposition once, instead of getting upset. So which I said to him yesterday.
well, I guess I'm very thankful I'm interviewing today and not 20 years ago, or I would have probably been yelled at for some of the questioning. But
I wouldn't have done it. Who has
fair,
time for that stuff?
fair enough. Well, I'm lucky to get you when I did, and I think people will really learn a lot from this conversation, which not only touches on the industry but its values and how to treat people, how to treat and invest in your communities. So, Stephen, on that we'll wrap. But again, I just really want to thank you for taking the time and being a leader on many levels. And hopefully, we'll continue to watch your success day to day and more achievements across the board.
Thank you so much, Aaron.
Thank you for joining the Dealmaker's Edge. Don't forget to follow us on your favorite podcast platform. Give us a 5-star rating so more people can follow the conversation.